are one. One in love, one in spirit.
Very true.
Shirley Paul, and men in spirituality. Whatever comes up is going to come.
Nature.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Together very quickly. Right. I mean, what the level of respect for women. Good morning and welcome to Living Truth 365. I am Reverend Sharon Thompson, and it's my honor and privilege to be with you on this wonderful Sunday morning. And as I always say when we come together, we are one. One in love, one in spirit, one in truth, and one in God. Well, this morning things are set up a little bit differently. You're like, what's going on, Reverend Sharon? She Speaks is what's going on. I got the women with me today, and we're going to talk about women and spirituality. So let me introduce you to the panel. Go ahead, ladies.
I'm Marie Powell.
I'm Reverend Jada, Reverend Cheryl,
Shirley Paul.
Amber Arnold.
And that's Lil Harper there in case you're wondering who our little baby is. She speaks too. All right, so here's what's going to happen today. I want to just have a real conversation with some real women about women and spirituality. Whatever comes up is going to come up. It's going to be real talk among women. She's going to speak. So, ladies, here's the first question I have for you. How do we define womanhood in today's world, and what does that look like in real life? So I'm going to ask that question again. How do we define womanhood in today's world, and what does that look like in real life? So ladies, what are you thinking? How do we define womanhood today? What does that look like in real life?
you know it when you see it.
You know it when you see it. You know it when you see it. What do you mean by that, you know it when you see it?
I think it's one of the characteristics that we ascribe to women is a feeling nature,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you know it when you see it.
Uh-huh.
You feel it.
Yeah.
You feel a sense of nurturing,
Right.
a sensitivity,
Mm-hmm.
a compassion.
Right.
It's a feeling,
It's a feeling.
at least for me.
It's a feeling.
Don't we know it when we see it?
Yeah, I think you do. Like, I think you do know it when you feel it. That's true. And you grow into it.
The first word that entered my mind when you asked the question was strength.
Mm-hmm.
Women today are strong. We have to be.
Mm-hmm.
We're up against so much. The latest being we're having challenges feeding our babies.
Right.
I can't even imagine. But the strength is there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's the first thing that came to my mind.
The strength of a woman.
Right, the
Mhm.
strength of a woman
Mhm.
is what we're seeing nowadays.
Right. What do you think, Shirley?
Well, when we collaborate, knowingly and unknowingly, things come together very quickly.
Right.
I mean, once we set that intention, we can get on the phone or call someone, or I know someone. I mean, things just, it snowballs.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people have to have a meeting about it or what have you. It's like, when I need something, we know who to call. We need a prayer, we need to get something done. We know how to just say, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. And it doesn't take a lot for us. Our strength is, we know we're going to get it done. We don't hope to get it done. We know that we're going to get it done because this is what has to happen, and it has to happen right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're mentioning about the formula. The companies are there at the board table. I know we have a solution for that. I know that it's going to be very quick and fast, and it's not going to be so cost exorbitant as it has been, because many a times you hear women say that the prices have gone up so much. There's a solution, and I really, really do see them fulfilling that this month, not like way into the future. That it's going to flow.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to flow because we know we are very, very powerful, we're resilient, and we're very, very connected.
Right. What do you think, Marie?
First word came from me was respect.
Mm.
I've noticed as I've gotten more mature that there's a higher level of respect for women. even the younger people are now, they acknowledge that, which is interesting because I always thought, with the way things are in the world, and we always want to say the young people are going in this direction and they're not really, but I've experienced a high level of respect as I've gotten older as a woman. And I think they see us as wise people. And I think that's important to understand, that we should embrace that we do have knowledge. We've gained it over the years. It's a shame if you haven't. But I think respect is what I'm feeling when I hear the word woman.
That's an interesting road right there when you're talking about respect and being acknowledged. Because I kind of am a little bit ambivalent about that. In counseling, I hear all types of young people coming to me talking about how they don't have respect for women. And Amber's nodding her head. There's a whole generation of young men that do not respect women. Now, they may respect their mamas and their aunties, but women of their own generation, they don't have a whole lot of respect for them. And as these young men are coming to me counseling, they want to get engaged, they want to get married, and they're talking about how they can't find women like their mamas or their grandmothers or their aunts. They can't cook. They don't know how to keep a house. Whatever the complaints are that they have about these younger generation of women, it's not the same as what you're talking about in terms of respecting us because of our womanhood. They're respecting us because of what they think that we can do and what we bring to the relationship. But what we bring to the relationship is our womanhood. That's, okay, the cleaning, the cooking, knowing how to take care of family, knowing how to support your family, knowing how to, handle these different things in life that comes up, managing money. As my grandmother would say, take a little bit and make a whole lot of something out of it. Okay, that's something that can be learned. But this ideal of womanhood, that's in you. That's who you are. I don't care, young, old, in between. That womanhood is going to grow in you as you mature in your spirituality and in your womanhood and in life. So that's just an interesting thing for me.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to hear like all of your descriptions of womanhood, strength and resilience and respect, because in my generation it's like, well, at what point do I not have to be strong? At what point can I live a soft life? At what point can I feel safe and supported where, yeah, the women are the doers, but what if I don't want to do it? What if I want to just enjoy it being done? So it's just a different perspective. I also feel like the respect thing is different in our generation, because in your generation we do feel respected and protected, and it's quite the opposite for ours. It's almost like we're at the bottom of the totem pole. It's like, okay, yeah, you're black. Okay, on top of that, you're a woman. So it's like we're at the bottom. So it's just like, I don't know, at what point do we get to that feeling of being respected? And it's like, we don't get to, what's the word I'm looking for? Engage in our womanhood, because womanhood for us is a task and not a feeling.
So it's not a state of being.
Right.
That's what it's, you're doing womanhood instead of being and allowing it to come up through you, and it's part of what you live every day. That's where that tie of spirituality comes in, because that's key for me. Womanhood and spirituality, they go hand in hand. Because when you know who you are as a woman, then you can be grounded in your spirituality. And then that becomes part of what you do every day. How you live your life, how you run your family, how you support your man, your community, the world. That becomes part of who you are.
Right.
So I wonder if we as the elders have not passed on this ideal of what womanhood is, or how's that been misinterpreted? How's it gotten lost for someone like Amber's generation?
It's interesting what you said, Amber. I'm sitting here thinking about myself at your age. And what I realized was my spirituality was the thing that helped me get to where I am today. So I was probably had the same mindset you had at that age, your age, that, can I just be soft? Can I just be, and I've got to be all this, makeup, dress, go out, hunt, look, and I realized, after I made a stronger connection with my spirituality, I was able to realize I could be and that someone would respect me for that, and that it over time it evolved. I'm not going to say we're going to start off that way, but I believe that once I gained more connection from a more spiritual side of my life, I was able to form my own life and create that life. And so as I've gotten older, it's allowed me to be more settled. What you were just saying earlier before we got on, you feel more settled in who you are.
Right.
I think that gives out the signal to other people, this is my energy, you know, and do you want to embrace it or not? You get to choose. But we have to be okay with us in that space. And I think that's how I've evolved, because I was all over the place when I was young. I really was. And you know, you're wanting so many different things and you're thinking your life is supposed to be this. But then after a while, you settle into who you really are. And then you start aligning yourself with spirit. And things start getting better, and you can hear. You can hear, and you can understand. Things get so clear, but it is a stage process. It's not gonna happen overnight. It just doesn't.
My offering is also because society says we should be here by this time, we should do this, we should do that. And it's so goal driven so much. It's many times when you meet someone, they don't care about your name. They want to know what you do. They want to know what you do, where you live, want to kind of see what you're doing. It's all tied to things. But my offering is stay in church or stay involved spiritually and take classes to just be intentional about growing you, not what it looks like to someone else, because you're never, none of us are ever going to measure up to what someone else thinks of us. But my offering is stay connected to your spirituality, whatever that looks like for you, and take classes that will continue to enrich you, not so much for income, because that'll come, it'll come, but to be intentional about growing you personally. And you'll start to calm and settle, and you'll become aware of this knowingness from within, not what auntie said you should be or what this person is expecting or the supervisor at work is saying you should be here or what have you. You'll get away from allowing other people to place those labels and you're trying to live up to someone else's expectation. But continue to grow and take classes and find things that fill you up, because too often we're doing so many things that other people want us to do. Other people say that have deemed it that we should do it, but continue to do things. And we're not also weren't taught when we were younger that we're supposed to be having fun along the way. We weren't taught that. And that is definitely my motto that I've been living from a space of we are supposed to be having fun along the way. And that will really start to help connect you with your womanhood even more so. You say, like, I'm doing this, and I'm having to do a check, and I'm having fun at this, because you're training. You're training. She sees everything. Harper sees everything. So have some fun along the way, because that is a part of womanhood. That is womanhood, having some fun and not just always having to be in charge and be strong.
Reverend Cheryl, what did you want to offer?
I just wanted to say that I'm intrigued by the fact that your description of womanhood included it being a task. That really stuck out to me, because I had to process that for a minute. I was like, oh, what exactly does she mean by it? I said, oh, okay, I see. She sees woman as doing. I got to do this, this, because that's what's expected of me. Instead of embracing being a woman. It's more of a, okay, so woman for me means I gotta do. Instead of, I gotta be. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. So that intrigued me.
And the power, I think, Amber, of your womanhood will well up within you when you find the power of your voice. And that's something that you move in through as you find your voice, your own individual voice as a woman. What that looks like for you. How do you sit in that? How do you move in that? So you have to find your own voice. So that's a question I want to ask the panel. When did you find the power of your own voice? And how did you find it? When did you find it? And how did you find it? And maybe the other question is, how you found it? You know? You know?
That's a good question.
Well, I grew up with grounding institutions that put emphasis on leadership for children. Like in the church, I grew up, like many people, I grew up in the church.
Right.
And you were expected to give an Easter speech. You know, you were expected in Sunday school to have a voice and speak with confidence. There was a certain degree of training that happened. You weren't cognizant where, I don't even know if the instructors, the teachers, the ministers were, you know, cognizant of what they were doing. But they were saying, we are training these children to be able to stand up and speak with a certain authority and confidence. I don't know institutionally in this country that is happening as it was happening in my generation. I'm Generation X, they don't talk about us that much. And I believe when I was listening to Amber speak, I think that the current generations have conflated womanhood and manhood with life skills. There are certain life skills that everybody needs to have, you know, and I don't know if that's really being emphasized. And we're also in this society that promotes individualism rather than community. And we as a people, we are community people.
Yes,
we are people of community.
Yes,
it's meaningful to be in the kitchen when the women are cooking, not to learn how to cook.
Conversation, honey.
Like the barbershop.
But to listen for the wisdom.
Yes, yes.
That's why I think places like the barbershop are so sacred.
Right.
You know, because you're in a multi-generational environment where you can absorb. And so you can see womanhood, you can see manhood, you can feel it.
Right.
And so I began to have my voice as a little person.
Right.
You know, a little person.
Anybody else? When did you find and how did you find the power of your voice?
I didn't find it until I was probably 30. For a long time, I had a challenge speaking out. My voice would close down on me, actually, physically close down on me. And I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do, be, and all that. And I took a Toastmasters class. That's what got my voice going. And now that helped me become a teacher, right? Which my parents did not want me to become a teacher. They were like, no, don't go into education, they don't pay. But of course I went into higher ed, but what I found when I started teaching my students didn't speak out and speak their voice and gain any power. So that's one of the big things I do right now in school. I make them present, I make them speak. And I said, the power of the spoken word is amazing. So what it taught me was in my voice and womanhood and who I am was my voice. Being able to speak out and then help others speak out. Yeah.
I can piggyback on that because I was going to say I began to find my voice when I turned 30. And I went into a real serious period of introspection. And a real serious period of figuring out what I wanted to hold on to and what I needed to release. I was the mother of a 2-year-old. I could see divorce right down the road. And I had this mental tape that went around my head since I could remember. That came from my parents. that no matter what I did, no matter what I accomplished, what I would always hear from them is, Cheryl, that's great, but you can do better. And so what I always focused on is, this is not good enough. Whatever I'm doing right now, I know it's not going to be good enough because my parents are going to tell me you can do better. And so I was always striving to do better and never like crack. I never reached that because I was always reaching for it. When I turned 30, I sat back and I said, you know what, Cheryl, you are okay, right where you are. Just accept that. Let's move from that point. And then you can build a life for yourself instead of trying to lead the life that others expect of you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
So I also started when I was 30.
Interesting.
Interesting about finding a voice. I can say I started at 30, more confident at 40, but it depends on, for me, it depends on where I am because I grew up in this huge family. I have my voice, but sometimes I would lose it to a sibling.
Male or female, just for reference?
This one was a 10-year, it was a female. And as I said to you all, I have a lot of siblings. The family I grew up in, there were 10 of us. So I had a sister that I idolized in a lot of ways because she was like the mother I didn't have. And it took me into my 50s to really get a handle on it and said, you know, this is not healthy. And I'm not going to do what pleases this person. It's time that I listen to my own inner voice and do what's pleasing for me. Even if that meant disconnecting from the relationship, something that was very, very important to me. And even when I do have an exchange with the person, I have to make sure I do some self-talk and I have to prepare. I have to prepare when I'm interacting with the person. I'm looking forward to being with the person, but it's just it's a lot of weirdness that happens and a lot of weird energy, and many times it can be bristling at times and a lot of little undertones. But I finally had to work with me through therapy and just a lot of classes. I'm enough. I am enough.
And that's key. This idea of knowing that you are enough.
Yes.
That's going to help you to find that power of your voice. Because if you don't think that you're enough, then you're constantly searching for something that you think you're missing to add to give you power when you already have the power. You are enough. But if you don't know that you're enough, then you can't find your power because you're constantly looking for something that you think you don't have.
Or hoping, since this person is still on their side, hoping that at some juncture along the way, they're going to validate you. So when you learn to know that you're enough, that's enough validation right there.
Looking for validation leads to disappointment.
Yeah, looking for validation certainly leads to disappointment every single time. Every single time. Every single time. Amber, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, sure. So I think right now my voice is like in a lost and found box somewhere. Growing up, I was always very vocal. And through growing up, I realized now that the magnitude of my voice was too much for some people. And so it was sometimes criticized or negatively spoken about. And I realized that slowly over the years, I started giving the power of my voice to different people to make them feel comfortable around me. And so now I'm at a place where I'm going to those little lost and found boxes and taking it back. And it's like, when I get my voice completely back, it's up to you if you want to engage with me. I'm no longer gonna give parts of myself away to make other people feel comfortable.
Nice.
Come on, baby. Come on. Because we do that.
Yes, we do.
That
Yes, we
constantly.
do.
We do that in relationships. We do it with family. We do it with our children. We do it in the world. We silence ourselves.
Yes, we do.
And in silence ourselves, we limit our ability to grow. So it's like, wow, thank you for that, because that was so powerful. And at some point, I think every woman comes to the point where they're like, you know what, I will not be silenced. And again, that comes and goes. I will not be silenced. I'm going to say what's on my mind. I'm going to say what I think, because I'm a woman and I can do that. You know, because I'm what's holding up this foundation of this family. Yes, you may bring your financial support, but you're relying on me for what I bring, that only I can bring. So you have to understand that power of who you are as a woman and the power of your voice. So yes, Amber, collect it from the lost and found boxes, because that's what you're going to need to carry you
I
forward.
love that imagery.
Exactly.
She said my voice is in the lost and found box.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So that leads
Yes.
that leads me to a really important question here. How traditionally has the church silenced women? Not just silenced us, but made us feel less than, or how has the church, I'm going to put it this way, affected women as a whole when it comes to our womanhood and our spirituality? The deep topic. Let's go, ladies.
I
Come
gotta
on.
tell you a scenario. So, thank you for that question. Some years ago, I worked with this guy, and his father was a minister, and he was a lighter expression guy. And at first, we didn't get along, but I had to make a shift within me to say, I'm gonna get along with this person because we work together. And I mean, we really did not like one another. Long story short, when I set the intention and started working with myself, if we see one another today, I meant like we hug and embrace. I meant like we are totally thrilled to see one another. But to answer your question, one day at work, because usually at work I stay away from religion, politics, and race, because those are they're just very divisive. And one day we were at work and he says, yeah, it was at the time that Baptist was not allowing women to be ministers. This was back the early 2000s or so. And he made a comment. He says, yeah, I can understand why women shouldn't be in the pulpit. And it just hit, my back was to him, but it hit me. And I said, what are you saying? Why? And he says, well, I said, let me tell you something. I say church wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for women. I said, none of them would exist. I said, I don't care what you call it, Lutheran, Protestant, whatever. I said, it would not exist if it was not for women. And he says, well, how do you figure? I said, most of the time we write the sermons that get delivered from the pulpit. I said, we're the ones who take the family. We're the ones who do the fundraisers. We're the ones who making sure the tithes. And I said, church wouldn't exist. And I said, by the way, enough of this here, because we shouldn't even be talking about this at work. We just started liking one another. And I'm just to feel a little bit different towards you. But he took, and I ended the conversation. 2 weeks later, he came back and he says, Shirley, I owe you an apology. I said, well, bring it on, because, that's pretty big, because here's this guy like 6'5", 6'7". And for him to offer an apology, considering what our relationship had been, that was pretty, I said, okay, Spirit, you're doing some work on us both. He said, I never thought about it that way. He says, I never thought women should have been. He says, but it was my mom who took us to church. It was my mom who had us to put money in church. It was my mom that was always making the calls around or gathering she said other people. I said, did you say other women? I said, yeah, other women that were helping to raise money to do whatever needed to be done. And says basically, I would just see my dad, he was the minister, I would see him deliver. I said, I'm sure mom helped with it. He says, I never thought about it, but yeah, she was doing a lot of, I said, He says, I guess they should be.
Something to think about.
Yeah, he just slowed, I guess they should be. And I said, yeah, you think? But that was just something so profound to have that conversation with a coworker, because he never even thought about it in all of those aspects of, the church would not exist without us.
Come on, church girl. Come on, what you got to say?
Well, a couple of years ago, before my father made his transition, I was visiting him in Arkansas, and he's had been a minister for over 40 years. My pastor from the children's church. And he always wanted me to go into the ministry. And I would just, kind of laugh, because Church of God in Christ didn't ordain women. And I was looking through one of his, I don't know if it was a brochure of some sort, and it had all of the elders and bishops and Church of God in Christ, and it was old black man, old black man, old black man, young black man, old black man, young black man, old black man. That was like new, it was all them, right? And I was like, Daddy, look. And he was like, look, let me tell you something. The women run the thing. Don't let that stop you. They run things. So I think that the women of the church have to take their power because we do run the thing. But we bought into this patriarchal system.
Right there.
And so there needs to be an awakening with us.
There is.
I agree.
There is.
I agree. I could not agree more, because that takes me into that wonderful question of, traditionally, if we look back, God, that higher power, has always been referred to as He. So everybody considers God to be masculine. So now when we look as a woman, we're worshiping a masculine figure. But it's like, how did that come to be in the first place? You know, when you think about tradition, because it's interesting to me, because out of that tradition, when we look at religion, everything comes out of that religion. Family values, structures, beliefs, morals, behaviors, thoughts about gender, sexuality, all of that comes out of that. But what does that say about us as women, and how we now view ourselves from that traditional patriarchal viewpoint and perspective?
It says we bought into it.
We certainly bought into it.
And it wasn't written about us.
It had nothing to do with us.
So when it's written from a male perspective, they're going to be male characters.
That's what they're comfortable with.
And it can explain it, because you can't explain it if you don't sit down and talk to somebody and understand their side of the coin.
Right.
So to me, that's where it all evolves from.
And keeping you in place.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. From my
Definitely.
understanding, when I think about, religion, I think about how it was introduced to us or allowed for us to practice. And then that goes back to, slavery and all of that. It's like, okay, well, we weren't allowed to do all these other things, but we were allowed to go to church or organize as a church. Well, where did we get our teachings from? We got what they gave us. So I think that the whole structure of the family and the structure of the church was all like a part of kind of like control.
Exactly.
And then it was at what point do we're generations past that, take the time to research, our ancestors' traditions and religions. And a lot of traditions and religions that I have researched are, what's the word I'm looking for? There are a lot of feminine energy in the higher beings. And so it's just like, we never got away from, okay, we're gonna give them this because it outlines what we want them to follow in order to control them.
Right. And no one talks about that beautiful divine feminine energy that has been taught, worshipped traditionally for many years. The goddess, now it's considered pagan religion.
Right.
That's a pagan religion.
Right.
You're worshiping women. Wow. Because traditionally, it's all about that patriarchal hierarchy. But many years, it's been about women. If you look at African roots, Indian roots, those religions have all had a female that they have worshipped. But somehow in the Western world, we don't consider it to have any value.
But even if you subscribe to the Bible traditionally and you read it actively, it says He created them in His image. He created them. And so if He created them in His image, and male and female, He created them, then how can you subscribe a gender to Him if He created them, he and she? Then that would suggest to me that you can't give Creator your God a specific gender, nor can you negate one over the other.
You cannot, because God is spirit, God is energy. God is neither male, it's immaterial. You know, it's not it's no physicality to it. So it's neither male nor female. It's a balance of both energies moving together.
Absolutely. I had that experience in a church that many of us are associated with, Hillside. And Hillside has an opening song where they sing, God is already here,
Right.
can't you feel his spirit? And I always sang her spirit,
Yes.
she's already here. One day, this sister came up to me after, so she said, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. She said, I noticed when you sing the opening song that you always ascribing God to be a female. I said, I believe God created us in God's own image. I said, do you believe God created us in God's own image? She said, yes. I said, well, when I look in the mirror in the morning, I see a black female.
Okay.
I said, I got confirmation that God was a black female when I saw The Matrix, which is my favorite movie. Because the Oracle, I mean, it's right there. Anybody who doesn't understand, she goes to The Matrix so they understand. God is a black woman. To me. That's what was important.
But see, here's the reality of it. And I actually had a conversation with Dr. Rocco yesterday as well, just to talk to him about the panel and some of the things that we were talking about. When we're looking at this idea of the word God, they didn't really have a word. In other languages other than English, nouns and sometimes verbs are either masculine or feminine. And the word that was chosen for God, they consciously chose a masculine word. It's been adapted by men going forward to regard God as a he, but there was no word that they could use, so they chose that masculine gender, you know, that masculine word to refer to God. And that's just what they did. So if they had a word that would have been she, then they would have referred to, I believe that they would have referred to God as she, but because of the patriarchal system and the way that, I'm gonna say it guys, men are, they would have taken over, you know, and continue to use he. But that word she, they chose the word. That's really what it is. And if you go back and do the research, that's all it is. They just didn't have a word. And they chose a male word. It's that simple.
I've always, even as a kid when I couldn't explain it, but as an adult I can, I've always referred to it as a divine, because I've always just knew within. And I didn't always live with my mom, but when I did, at times, she was in the holiness religion. And I can remember this, I'm not knocking any religion, I'm just saying this is one of the ones that I had experience with. The minister had given this rousing speech and about God, and he's gonna slay you down and all of this. And I can remember he just paused for a moment and said, does anybody have any questions? I said, well, God is so, and I was a kid. I may have been preteen. I said, God is so loving and so kind. Why? And if my mother could have reached me, she would have dismembered me. Like, you don't question God. And I said, but it's in here. Even as a kid, I always knew that, because I always enjoyed being outdoors and in the sun and the trees and all, because I always got that feeling of fulfillment and knowing. And even when I need a question to something or a situation, I'm just divine order for me, to align within me. And that was another reason I never ever accepted the cross thing, because so much came with that. And it was like, here's a cross. No, don't want it. I said, give it to someone that can appreciate it, because of the symbolism that so much of it has been attached to that I grew up with. And so I just said, you know, I think just being, because we all can say anything, but our actions is ever so profound.
Absolutely.
But you said that word symbolism, and I want to rewind just a little bit back to church, the influence of the church, womanhood, and symbolism. In terms of womanhood, what greater symbol than Eve? And what we're traditionally taught about Eve. And so the influence of how that makes us feel as women, with that being whom they want to say that's the mother of all, but what do they traditionally teach about Eve? She was what? The beginning of sin for women. You know, so it's like, wow, what a way to think about yourself. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, you know, the man is like, the sin is not on me, it's on you.
Right.
You know, she could not, she was so weak.
Right.
She couldn't resist that temptation of an apple and, you know,
Right.
she was the whispering in the ear by the
Right.
snake. She was
brought it
tempted and she
down.
brought it on everybody to come. So it's like, what a way to think of yourself as a woman,
Right.
to know that that's where, you know, it's like, wow. So it's like, at what point do you learn to change that and how you see yourself and how you associate yourself with that story, because it is a story.
Written by a man.
Thank you, written by a man. And the truth of it is that's not even the true damn story. That's not even the true story. You know, she was not the first woman, you know, because we forget about Lilith. You know, she was, because again, you hear that story about, you know, Eve and Adam. He was put to sleep, taken from the rib and given to her. Well, what about Lilith? Because she was created equally with Adam. Same way Adam was created, she was created. But you don't hear about Lilith. You only hear about Eve. And so I've had a lot of women say, you know, come to me, be like, you know, well, you know, this is how women are, you know, this is our burden to bear. We bear children in pain. And, you know, I'm like, really? That's what you, the Bible says it. But the Bible is written by a man. You know, it's a story. It's symbolic. It's not the living, it's not truth. You know?
I think a lot of times everyone gets entrapped by the word and these books. And so we based everything off of, well, this says this.
Yes.
And that says that. Interesting, I was sitting with a traditional African priest.
Right.
And he said to me, you know, we were watching a video and the male priest on the video was doing a divination. His spouse was sitting behind him. He was reading the divination and she was interpreting what was going on. And the traditional African priest said to me, see, that's a man thing. The men need a piece of paper, they need a book. The women, their ashe is in them. It's in you. And I think the logical nature of the brain, which we associate with men, the male aspect, works well in that the paper, tactile, printed, script kind of environment.
Right.
But the female nature, the intuitive nature that we have, is here.
Right.
And so I think we all get entrapped by, well, this says this, and that says that, and Eve, and Lilith, and what about that story, and what about this story? Understanding that there is a human being trying to figure things out, who put pen to paper, trying to figure out this universe with what they understood. And so we all get kind of entrapped into this human interpretation. When our femininity, our intuitive nature is here.
Right.
It's a feeling.
And each verse, you can take the same verse, it's going to be interpreted so differently depending on the person talking about the verse.
Right.
So it's the truth for them, whoever is interpreting it. And so when I said that to a guy, because he was a co-worker, but he was an ordained minister. And I said, he was starting to quote something from the Bible. I said, you know, they're written by people, everyday people. It was an inspired moment when they were writing it. Inspired moments, depending on how long it is. If we weren't on that job, that man might have harmed me. And I told him, I said, you know, I did make him aware that if any harm came to me, harm would come to him also. Because he was so incensed when I said they're inspired writings.
And sometimes plagiarized by the writings of women.
Oh,
Say it again, louder.
Oh, I said, and sometimes plagiarized by the writings of women, like the 12 Commandments.
many of them.
That's right.
So how do we, as women, release ourselves from the expectations of others? Like, how do we be okay not being obedient to traditional religion, our parents' expectations, the expectations of others, being that obedient daughter? You know, how do we release ourselves from others' expectations?
Don't forget about being obedient to a man.
Obedient to a man. 'Cause that, I know nothing about that. how do we release ourselves from others' expectations?
I think it goes back to the question you asked about finding your voice. I think, you know, we all got Beyonce in us.
Hey, Sasha Fierce.
Okay. Who runs the world?
Yes.
Okay. You just got to figure it out who you are and get comfortable in that and settle.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you got to settle. Because we spend a lot of time thinking, well, should I, would I, what would they? We spend a lot of time worrying and thinking and obsessing about what others think. Someone told me once, what others think of you is none of your business.
Come on now. Say it again.
It's none of your business.
Yes.
You got to figure out who you are. You got to be comfortable with that, and then you can move forward.
Right.
Otherwise, you're always struggling, pushing and pulling, and causing yourself a lot of stress and anxiety. I see a sister back there that's shaking her head like that. Yes.
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 I think I totally agree with you, because I think the big part of speaking your voice is being aware of what you're going to speak about, but also you feel firm in that. You know, you are speaking from a place of truth and speaking from a place of what you know and fact, whatever that is.
Right.
I had an experience at work where they were, my job, they were kind of moving through this direction that wasn't going to be good for our organization. And I spoke up one day. You know, it just was constant, week after week. It was going on for years. Same thing, talking the same thing. And I finally spoke up in an open forum, and I said, look, this is how I feel about it. We're not actually staying on top of our mission and our vision of our organization. We've moved away from it. We're just doing things for the sake of doing things, and I don't know if it's for money or whatever it is, but we need to get back on track. Because I feel it's not, all of the things that we're doing is not creating any good purpose for us. After a while, it's going to show up in a bad way. And the response I got afterwards, because I spoke in an open forum about it, was amazing, because it was what other people want to say out loud. You know, so when we know our truth and we know what is true and what has valid reason to be said, we're gonna do the right thing. And I think that's part of us as women. We have to keep working on our voice and working on our ability to speak out and be heard. I was just sitting here thinking of all the things about women, Mother Africa.
Right.
They don't say male Africa.
No, they do
They say
not.
Mother Africa. Why?
And the motherland.
And the motherland. Why?
Mother Nature.
Mother Nature. Right. It's always that feminine, comforting wisdom that I spoke about earlier, the wiseness. All of it's true.
Strength.
It's the
Yes.
strength.
Strength.
Yeah, and they know it's true.
Right.
So they wouldn't keep referring to that.
Even the tree of life, from a doula's perspective, the tree of life, when you open up the uterus, it looks like the tree of life.
That's right.
And the tree of life in the uterus is within the woman.
Right.
So even though we need the man to conceive, I guess, we need his seed, we're the one who grows it and nurtures it. And it's birth out of us. Male and female are birthed out of the woman. I'm sorry,
No, that was great.
I just wanted
We
to
need your voice.
touch on something you said, Mother Africa, Mother Nature, Mother Earth. And it was like when you were saying that, I was like, but all of those things are exploited or neglected by man.
There you go.
So what does that really say? It's like the things that you need in order to survive. Even though you need the earth, you need, the resources from the motherland. It's like, how do you exploit that when it's something that you need?
They need to retrain their brains. They need to understand.
So on some level, as you're saying that, my mind is running through my mind, do we exploit women the same way?
Yes.
Yeah, of course we do. So there is no difference. But again, it comes back to what somebody, and I don't remember who said it, is that it is incumbent upon us to find our own power, to reclaim our own power, to put it out there that we now stand firmly grounded in who we are as women, and we take our power back. We don't allow anybody to define us anymore. We define ourselves. We define what womanhood looks like. We connect that spirituality and womanhood together, and we then carry that forward in our families and in our communities and our relationships with others. We now take our control back because, for so long we've been controlled and defined, ruled by men, and we've been silenced. So when do we find our voice again?
Cheryl said about introspection. And that's something that's ongoing throughout this journey, introspection. And with that introspection, the two things that I've set for myself is, what are my intentions? And even when I set my intentions, I'm always asking the divine with my willingness. Because you're gonna, as you journey through this life, just, keep checking your intentions for yourself, not what someone else wants you to do, because when you do it for yourself, that's your power. That's holding on to your power and your voice. And just knowing that whatever you need, that guidance, you keep having that introspection. For me, that willingness and that intention, that inner voice is going to tell you.
Yes.
It's going to tell you. It not only will it tell you quietly and gently, it will demonstrate itself.
Absolutely.
Time and time again. It may be through a TV show. It may be in a passing conversation. It may be a car moving along the interstate, a commercial on TV. It will continue to demonstrate itself throughout your life. Just continue to be willing to go within, not what someone else may have said. It sometimes could feel like it's crushing at that moment. Oh, Shirley, you're XYZ. But go into that mirror with that intention of that introspection. Who are you really, Shirley? Have that conversation. The divine will support you and show you. It will, because going back to the church many a times, this is another part of us claiming our voice. Not being taught that you can pray and heal yourself. Oh, I got to wait till I get to the minister. If I can't, it ain't nothing gonna happen until I reach Pastor so-and-so. Well, everything can happen before you reach Pastor, not to negate Pastor so-and-so. But you have the power within you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add that I think one of the keys for women in going through periods of introspection, and I'm going to change up just a bit here, is we listen and we pay attention to the cues. And some of the cues that we receive come through music.
Right.
And when Reverend Sharon asked us to throw out some questions that we'd like to discuss, I was like, ooh, I got one. I said, I'm going to talk about the spiritual impact that secular music has had in our lives. Because many years ago, a friend of mine asked me, they said, listen, we were listening to some music, we were listening to some gospel music, traditional gospel music, and they turned to me and they said, listen, who's your favorite gospel artist? And I said, without hesitation, I said, it's Marvin Gaye. And they said, well, Marvin Gaye is not a gospel artist. I said, well, he may not speak gospel to you. I said, but let me tell you something. I said, he speaks gospel to me. And I brought a few little items of show and tell here. I'm going to go through them real quick. But I need you to understand, this right here 51 years ago, Marvin Gaye asked us a question. What was the question here?
What's going on? What's going on?
Thank you. Are we not still asking that question today?
Every day.
Did he not talk about climate change in this album? Did he not talk about black people getting killed? Did he not talk about save the baby?
Yes.
Save the children. The man, I don't know if you can see here, he's in a playground. That was not coincidence. Marvin was all about saving the babies. This was a concept album. You couldn't play a cut and then skip cut and then come back. You had to play it all the way through. And when you got to the end, would you hold this one, Michelle?
Absolutely.
When you got to the end, the last cut he did was Inner City Blues, makes me wanna holler and do what? Throw up both my hands. And we're still there. This brother was my high school classmate. A very deep brother. Anybody who knows the music of Gil Scott-Heron and the poetry of Gil Scott-Heron understands what a genius this brother was.
In the bottle.
Gil told us the revolution will not be televised. Okay? And he meant that. He was like, listen to what I'm saying. The revolution will not be televised. Then we had Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh, this is my favorite.
Okay. Now, I don't know how long y'all been following Earth, Wind, and Fire, but Earth, Wind, and Fire used to have a woman.
Sure did. Yes, it did.
Okay, she's
Yes,
right
it
there.
did. I got that album.
She's right there. Well, only 5 cuts on this album. Keep Your Head to the Sky, Evil, Clover, The Whole World's a Masquerade, Build Your Nest, and Zanzibar.
Zanzibar was
Okay? So Earth, Wind, and Fire started taking us to a spiritual level.
Come on.
And then they came out with Open Your Eyes and went full circle. Because through devotion, blessed are the children. Okay, so if you don't understand that, you don't understand. And then there's my favorite, Stevie Wonder.
Oh.
Stevie Wonder did this album called The Secret Life of Plants.
One of my favorites.
Nobody bought it.
Oh my God.
You and me?
Nobody understood that.
You and me and 5 other people. Bought this album. Nobody bought it. It was a soundtrack to a movie that nobody saw. The Secret Life of Plants. But it did have one hit on it. Send One Your Love with a Dozen Roses. I'm not gonna sing it because I'm not a singer, but y'all know the song Send One Your Love with a Dozen Roses. But this is one of my favorite Stevie Wonder albums because he really put himself into it. But then he decided to come out with songs that all relate to. Okay? So don't tell me that there is no spiritual influence to the secular music that we listen to, because these white boys brought it to us. Okay. They brought it to us in spades, and then after they'd had enough and they were on top of their game, they said, we're walking away. We laid our message out. We've left you enough music and enough messages for the rest of your lives. We out. Okay?
The Beatles.
The Beatles.
The Beatles. That's Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, if you're not familiar. 2 more. This is my baby.
Yeah, I know, that's right.
This is my baby right here. Everybody loved Prince.
Yes.
Prince was the one that taught me that there is a connection between sex and spirituality. Prince is the one that taught me it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to listen to it. It's okay to spout your truth through it because it's real. Now, if you look at this album, you can see it looks pretty new. I did not play this album a lot. It was not one of my favorite Prince albums, but as I was getting this together, I pulled this stuff out and I said, well, okay. I said, this is the Prince that we all know, the bad boy that gets up, that can play 47 instruments and plays them all well. I said, but this is the Prince that we would like to know. Laying on a bed with his naked self. I mean, I could not get, I just could get more of this Prince than he was willing to do. But that's another story for another time. But Prince you have to include in that. And finally, the other icon of my life is Bob Marley and the Wailers. I was fortunate to see Bob Marley in concert, not once, but twice. And I will tell you, it's an experience you will never forget in life because it was a love party. Bob was all about one love. He was all about us being one people, one race, no separation. And if we can just understand that, we can move forward. He lived a very short life, but he gave us a very deep message. So pay attention to the spiritual signals in your life that come through music and secular music. Because I've been listening to Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie and Bob and Beatles and others all my life. And it has helped me become the woman that I am today. So
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So that was a wonderful show and tell. So that leads me to ask the rest of the panel, what are some music artists, songs that have impacted your life or impacted you spiritually?
India Irie.
India Ari.
the miseducation of Lauren Hill.
Ooh, the miseducation of Lauren Hill.
you.
Yes. Come on now.
Well, I'm a classical and country music lover.
Let's go.
So don't ask me to name artists. I just listen to the music and my friends and people around me will say, this is who the artist is. I'm that person that I can tell you, oh, I like that song. Don't ask me to name the artist. But there are messages in it all. There are.
Sam Cooke.
Sam Cooke.
Yes.
Okay.
John Lucien.
John Lucien.
wow.
That voice of his. Oh my God.
Lonnie Liston Smith.
Lonnie Liston Smith.
God, I love
Okay. Curtis Mayfield.
Miles Davis.
Come on now.
Lupe Fiasco. Lupe Fiasco.
Oh, yeah.
I want to say something about when you were putting those albums up. When you started with What's Going On, took me back to 1979. 7th grade. My teacher played that. And she told us, listen to this. I want y'all to hear these words.
Exactly.
And that's what we did.
Exactly.
And I think that's what the power that we have in the next generation. What you just did was a service. You know, and I think that's something that we as women can get back to do that. That Earth, Wind and Fire album that you put up, I remember sitting in the back seat and two brothers was driving, right? They must have been in their late teens, early 20s. I was one of those kids that people picked up and took everywhere because I was well behaved. And I think it was Devotion. And turned around and said, I need you to listen to the words of this song. I must have been all of 5 or 6 years old. I think that is important to share with the current generation or remind everyone.
Why does it really have to be labeled secular?
Because we like labels.
That's true. Because we do love labels.
Yes, we do.
And also it's this not only about labels, but it's about this is good, this is bad. Us and them. That versus,
Compartmentalizing.
yes. So that's secular music. If you're a Christian, you have to be mindful of. You have to watch it. It's not good. It's only gospel music that has the message that you want to hear. But you can get a message out of anything in life. You just have to listen to it and pick up what you need when you need it. So.
And I think the church gives us mixed signals on that. I remember being influenced just as a small child with Earth, Wind and Fire, and sitting in a Sunday school class, and my sister had mentioned something about it, and the Sunday school teacher said, well, no, that's some Eastern religion. They've been doing some Eastern religion. We can't into all that. And then she said, well, I guess I'm going to hell.
Wow.
Because ain't going to be no fun there.
There's an excellent book that if you really want to understand secular, it's called Beyond Religion by the Dalai Lama. And I teach it at my school. And one of the things that they learn is secular is really about creating a community, about looking at your emotions, looking at who you are as a person in the world, as opposed to I'm Baptist, I'm Catholic, I'm this. What are the good parts of all of that? That's secular. That's circle secular. It's bringing it all together. And so I think the control piece comes back. How do we control things? We put it in this category, put it in this category. If you're not in this category, then you're evil, you're bad, you're this, you're that. But in essence, secular is about bringing everyone together. So again, the control factor keeps coming back into play. That's how man has created this holding us down. That's why we're finally evolving as women, because we're starting to feel our power, because some of the curtain is being pulled back. The whiz is not back there, right? And so that's really what's changing how we're seeing ourselves and how we're evolving. And I think that's important for all of us to embrace, is we're going through that evolution of taking our power back. That's really what's happening right now.
And most of those artists that you talked about came from the church.
Every one of them.
Had rooted in the church. That's why I love the label soul music.
Yes, because it's from the soul. Yeah.
It's for your soul.
It's for your
And it's
soul.
from our soul.
That's right.
And it's of our soul. Yes. All of
Absolutely.
that.
And when I think about soul music, I don't think secular. I think soul music.
Exactly, and speaks to the soul.
Music.
So ladies, there is a lot that we still can talk about, so I think we're gonna need a part 2 to this. That's definitely, so we'll have to get that on the calendar, get a part 2 going. But as we wrap this up for today, what each of you do you wanna leave the audience with as it relates to anything that we talked about, being a woman, this idea of femininity and spirituality? What are your last parting words that you'd like to leave the audience with?
I'll start. I tell it to myself, but I also tell it to share it with my niece, the young ones, and whoever will listen. There is an innate inner voice within each and every one of us. Regardless of what you see out here, choose to listen and to connect with that on a daily basis. It will give you the answers that a textbook, a video, your best friend, your mother, your mom that wants, your parents that wants the best for you. It will give you exactly what you need, when you need it, time and time again. That inner voice is innately within us. Don't shut it down. Listen to it.
I would say that, stop the inner conflicts of your mind and your heart. Once you get your mind and your heart in alignment, then the life that you want and the person that you are will gravitate towards you. I feel like a lot of things, or a lot of reasons why we have become so obedient to religion or to our family or to men, is because we're conflicting our mind and our hearts. So just, do your best to try to get those two in alignment, and then everything will flow better.
For me, I would say stay strong. Strength is really on my mind these days, because particularly because I think women are entering into the battle of their lives. We don't like to talk about the A word, because people have different feelings about the A word. And if you don't know what A word I'm referring to the word abortion. We're in the battle of our lives. It doesn't matter to me what your feeling about abortion is. What matters to me is that you want to put your rules on my body. And I have issues with that, because it's my body. It should be my choice. So I just want to implore women to stay strong, because we got many battles to fight. But the abortion battle is on the forefront right now, and they're getting ready to take that right away from us. And what they don't understand is they can take the right away from us if they want. They can act crazy if they want. But women are not going to stop having abortions. We're just going to go back to the back alleys. And we don't want to do that. We really don't. So let's keep fighting and let's stay strong.
I guess I was listening to Marianne Williamson the other night, and one of the things she said is we have to continue to be consciously aware that we are all sons and daughters of the same Spirit. And that if we can really work toward seeing that. It's going to be hard. We're going to have our conflicts. We're not going to agree. But at the end, if we can step back and continue to love each other and know that love is the cure, and that we'll never, you'll never settle whatever it is going on between others, but we got to still see behind that voice, that anger, that whatever is taking place is us, God, love. And if we can keep working on that, that's going to help us achieve what we need to achieve. I think it changes the dynamics of the energy around people when we start seeing that, no matter who it is. It's hard sometimes because sometimes we're confronted with it and it's very difficult. But then if we can keep seeing, you're still a child of God, and I'm still a child of God. And we came from the same source. You just chose your path, I chose mine. And we just got to continue loving.
And my message would be that all the good in the universe is available to us all the time.
So my last words for you is, on this wonderful journey in life, no matter whether you are male or female, I wish you grace and peace and love and power, knowing that you are worthy of everything that the universe has. It is available to you. And all my wish for you is for you to step into that and for you to achieve whatever dream, whatever goal that you set for yourself, because it is achievable. You just have to know that you are that thing that you seek, and go and find it and be it and live it and share it. That's what's important. So with that said, I love you, each and every one of you. I wish you a beautiful rest of your Sunday. And